All right, everyone, welcome to Royville. We just have gotten done watching Star Trek Picard, episode 2, called Maps and Legends, and we just kind of were thinking about talking about it.
Yeah. It's a good episode. I really do like that they've been very, very good about showing Jean-Luc Picard at a point in his life that he would naturally be right now. It's the same point in life as Patrick Stewart, and Patrick Stewart said a number of times that that's what makes this part so easy to fall into. So they're showing kind of a balance between him being an old man who's frail and possibly going senile a little bit. I mean, they talked about it a little bit in the episode. And an independent guy who thinks things through and is smart and knows what he needs to do. And I think this episode started showing a little bit more of that juxtaposition than the first episode.
I agree. I did like the episode quite a bit as well. I did not actually like the episode as much as I liked the first one. It seemed that this one, there was a lot going on, but it had to set up the villain, I think. And it was just kind of throwing a lot, now even more so than the first one, because I think the first one, a lot of the first half of the episode was the character piece of showing where Picard was at. But now this episode is showing, okay, here's the setting that Picard is living in, and here's what we have to do. He's starting his grand adventure. Here's all this information about what's going on. And I think as much as it needed to happen, I think they were just throwing a lot of information at you, just over and over in different scenes. Sorry, our cat Chewy has decided to go crazy while we're recording, and that just happens sometimes. But anyway, so I didn't like this one as much as the first one. However, I still did really like it.
I'm not entirely used to seeing Star Trek as an overarching plot piece.
Yeah, it's kind of odd that it's not episodic so much as even DS9 with the Dominion War had an overarching storyline, but every episode was pretty episodic. This is the current way shows are produced in something like a Netflix or whatever, where you have a whole season as one story. So it is kind of weird watching a Star Trek show taking that format.
It's not that I dislike it. It's just it's harder for me to wrap my head around the plot that they're trying to tell. And I did watch Discovery, and Discovery was more than Deep Space Nine, an overarching plot that wasn't very episodic. You know, they had the previously on, and you know, it all built to the accumulation of the plot that they built over the seasons. But this seems to be almost like it's a long movie that's split into parts.
Yes, or even almost more so, this is a chapter, and you're not really getting a complete story within that chapter. It's a chapter nonetheless. So it starts where the first episode left off, and then just kind of leaves you at the end. To me, just kind of, for lack of a better phrase, hanging in mid-sentence.
Kind of. But I see this episode, too, as sort of a transition from just showing Picard in his life to having him transition into his life that will actually probably start in episode 3. His big adventure. This is all just the stuff leading him to go and to get off the vineyard.
Yeah, Mr. Smith is starting to go to Washington at this point.
Yeah, he's pretty much made his mind up.
So now that we have gotten done with the spoiler-free section of this little discussion, let us definitely say from here on out there will be spoilers.
We will try to guard you from the really, really big ones, but it's hard to discuss things without at least spoiling some of them.
Yeah, because, I mean, even though we are spoiling some of the episode, and you may have not seen it yet, we didn't want to give away the huge reveals, the very big things. We really think you should experience those yourself as you're watching it. So the beginning of the episode kind of opens up with a fun little scene of the planet, or Utopia Planitia on Mars, and basically kind of what happened when Mars was destroyed, which not destroyed, but basically made uninhabitable. When we were talking about that in the first episode, they kind of go a little bit more into that and show you kind of the final hours, the final day of Mars before that happened, and show you a android and kind of how people are reacting to this android, which is kind of annoyingly what you think they're going to do. They kind of treat him like a second-class citizen, which, yeah, that's a trope, but why can't people just be nice? But anyway, that's just me. But yeah, they kind of treat him as kind of a second-class citizen, a little bit making fun of him, and then you kind of get this hint that the android is either being overridden or some kind of programming that's been set deep into the android's brain takes over, and boom, attack on Mars, uninhabited. Then from there, we go into basically Picard investigating what happened to the girl from last episode, which, here we go, huge spoiler from the first episode that we didn't talk about. She died, and there's a twin out there. So, trying to figure out how he can track this twin, what's going on with this twin, because he needs to still help out who he thinks is Data's daughter. Or, at this point, daughters.
Right. Maddox is the guy's name that we talked about a little bit in the last episode. And Picard says that he needs to go find him. Roger Maddox? Is that right?
Bruce Maddox.
Bruce, okay. He decides that it's necessary for him to go find him because he's been missing for a number of months. And find Soji, who I'm not sure if they know that's her name.
Yeah, I don't think at this point they know what she's actually called.
So those are the two things. Need to find the twin and keep her safe. Find Bruce Maddox and figure out what he was trying to accomplish with his most recent experiments.
So then, as it goes on, some of the episode is Picard going with his, what we kind of refer to as his maid and his butler, going and kind of investigating what happened with the girl in the first episode, why she was killed, and what the Romulans were doing. And there's kind of a little investigative, few scenes, kind of a little bit of montage, a little bit of technobabble devices that they were using to try to figure out if they could get a lead on what to do next.
The Romulans wanted us to believe that their forensic science wasn't very accurate. That's what I got from that whole conversation.
Yeah, it was definitely very technobabble to get the idea of what they needed, but I can kind of see that for example, they use a device that can show them the past in a room.
I think that the thing was like hacking into like the computer of the room, because at one point it just is wiped clean. So that's what I think was going on.
I didn't get that one, but that actually makes a lot more sense. So they kind of go, they find where they need to do what they need to do. Picard kind of has a direction that he needs to go find Bruce Maddox, and then he decides to go to Starfleet to ask for a ship. There is a somewhat funny scene of at this point, a host or an intern, from what I gather.
Door guy.
Door guy at Starfleet that does a little comedy skit about how he doesn't know who Picard is. Seriously? Okay.
Captain of the flagship
of the Federation. Yes. But maybe he was told, okay, you got to question everybody as they come in. So Picard says his name, spells his name, and then the guy gives him a visitor pass and says, good to see you, old guy. Basically, I'm glad you're up and around and not in the grave. Basically, have a good day. So, yeah, so he goes to talk to an admiral and basically to ask for Admiral Clancy, to ask for a ship to be reinstated. He'll even allow his rank to be lowered to captain just so he can head out and do what he wants to do. And Clancy shoots him down.
Guess what she did? She didn't just shoot him down. She shut him down and said, don't come back here. She shut him down and said, F you.
You know what you did.
And actually, she almost literally said F you. Like, that word was in the conversation.
Yeah, there was some cussing in the episode.
Which is okay.
Mm-hmm.
But coming from an admiral in a business meeting, it was jarring. And it, again, served the purpose in that I really don't like Starfleet in this particular future incarnation of Starfleet from my shows.
Yeah, they're definitely making Starfleet in this a little bit more adversarial, especially in the outset. We're probably going to see that kind of give rise to more story plot as this goes on. But yeah, definitely it's being a little bit more adversarial. So Picard leaves that, and he goes back to his butler and maid, who at this point now I believe are Tal Shiar operatives or ex-Tal Shiar operatives.
Yeah, we thought that they were, oh, how nice. They're staying with Picard because Picard helped them out. He probably did, but they're not there just to be the maid and butler and run the vineyard.
Right. So then, in a kind of a throwback to Kirk times, the Romulans basically say, hey, what was the word? And Picard basically says, the word is no, but I'm going to go do it anyway. Because, that's what captains of Starfleet do.
All of them.
Most of them. So, taking that into account, Picard basically starts his figuring out how he's going to get a ship. There's an interesting scene where he gets his old communicator and tries to get a hold of Crusher and basically says, please pick up. So there's some kind of odd thing going on with Crusher and Picard, which they'll probably elaborate on in the future. Somebody tells him, hey, if you ask your old crew to do it, they'll definitely jump right in with you. And Picard says, that's exactly why I can't ask them. Even he names Riker and Geordi and Worf, names them and says, I cannot ask them. I got to get some new people because if I ask them, I know they're going to help me. And I just don't want to put them in that situation. So he decides to put other people, I guess, that he doesn't care about in that situation.
It's more to the point, I think, that he watched Data die doing something that he's asked his crew to do. And he can't watch the people that he served for that many years die for something that he alone is seeking out. This is not even their mission anymore. They all have their own ships or are retired or whatever they've gone on to do. It's evidently hard for Picard, but not hard for Kirk. Hard for Picard to call all of his old friends to come and risk their lives because Kirk does it all the time with his crew.
Right.
But that's okay. I'm okay. They're two different. They're two different styles. However, that's why I think that's why he said that. Yeah, that's why
I think too. And so the last thing with Picard, before we kind of go to another area of the episode, before we kind of wrap this up a little bit with some final thoughts, there is kind of a fun scene with a member of the old Stargazer crew for Picard. There's a kind of, he talks to this individual. I don't really want to give too much of this scene away, because this scene does have pretty far-reaching plot for the series and for Picard in particular, for the series in general, Picard in particular. But there is kind of, I really like these little almost Easter eggs of things from Star Trek in general. Like, this guy could have been anybody, but he was really an old friend of Picard's who served with him on the Stargazer. And this little Easter egg of Picard's past life. And as a Trekkie, as someone that just loves the setting and everything that goes into it, that just, those little things just kind of really, really jazz me and make me smile.
Yeah, I can see how that would work that way. He was also played by a really recognizable character actor, which also helps to lend some weight to the scene that he was in, because he's somebody that you recognize as,
maybe not somebody in Star Trek, but definitely you're like, hey, that guy's in other stuff. I like him.
Right, yeah. He's definitely a friendly face in an unfamiliar-ish sort of world.
So taking that's a lot of the aspect of Picard and what's going on with Picard. Well, kind of switching gears a little bit, we go back to that Borg cube that we saw in the first episode very briefly. We come to find out through the parts with Picard and through the parts with the cube that the Romulans have have double secret probation. So they don't just have the Tal Shiar. That's a secret group of spies and killers that nobody knows about. They have the super secret spies that nobody knows about. So not only do they have the Tal Shiar, they have this group over to the side, whatever, of the Tal Shiar that nobody knows about, and it's super scary. So what's with the Tal Shiar then? But anyway, yes, so the Romulans have double secret probation.
I really liked this scene. And not just because we were kind of like, what the heck? But because Leandra, the maid, the female Tal Shiar agent, well, did we already say that we thought that they were?
Yeah, okay. we thought that they were Tal Shiar based off of this episode.
Laris. She says to Picard that calling anything like the secret police, the Tal Shiar secret police within Romulan society is kind of redundant. You can say everything in Romulan society is secret. So now, throughout the whole rest of the scene, my brain's going to secret chefs and secret traffic cops, and I know that's not what she meant.
Secret cupcakes from the secret baker.
I know that's not what she meant. And the little glimpses that we've had of Romulans in their own society, I understand what she's saying. Everybody, it's a paranoid society. It was supposed to, back when they first sort of established what it was supposed to show, I want to say the Soviet Union, but I'm probably thinking more like just the Soviet Union just after collapse, like Russia at that point, because everybody was looking over their shoulder for everybody. It was a little chaotic. And I know Romulans are supposed to sort of represent that sort of chaos in the world. And it's not even chaos. That's not the right word, but that whole paranoia, cloak and dagger, the whole thing, that's all Romulan. That's Romulus, all of it.
Right. So now that the Romulans have double secret probation, this group of spies and killers that nobody knows about, that's not the Tal Shiar, we get basically some scenes on the Borg cube, which is now called the Artifact, because it's not part of the Borg collective now.
It's cut off, yeah.
Yeah, it's cut off. But it's also kind of this graveyard of dead Borg and technology. We originally, if you listen to our first episode, talked about it as maybe a refuge for the Romulans. The Romulans were able to, once their planet was destroyed, were able to come together and kind of take these Borg cubes as refuge. Well, that's kind of been shattered. They use this, they're doing something crazy with it. You get some hints about exactly what they're doing, but not the whole thing. What you get scenes of doctors basically taking the cybernetics out of the dead Borg and then wrapping them up into like plastic bags,
like forensic bags,
forensic bags, where it kind of makes me think either they're cleaning them and selling them, or they're just trying to figure out the Borg technology.
It might be either.
Could be either, yeah.
However, what I gathered from it is, and what Soji, who is the android from the first episode, it's her twin. Her name is Soji. What Soji's doing there is she's hoping that some of the Borg drones are actually not dead.
Okay.
And that's what her
trying to help them, or
she's hoping,
right?
But it's not happened yet. She's hoping for a resurrection, I guess, is a resurrection or a glimmer of hope for these drones. I don't know why. Maybe somehow subconsciously, because she's at the point where Doge, whatever they called her, where she was when she was first starting to wake up. So she doesn't know that she's an android.
Okay.
She has the memories of a real girl.
Right.
So that was my impression of it, which is why she was so upset that the doctor kept calling the drone nameless. Because they have a name.
Okay.
That's what I took from it.
Okay. And then, so taking that into account, there was something that I forgot to mention. The reason that the Romulans have a super secret probationary group or double secret probationary group is that the Romulans hate androids and everything that this is coming from the Tal Shiar made. That the Romulans hate everything synthetic, cybernetic. You never see those in Romulan culture. And then we see later on in the episode, they're harvesting Borg technology. So there's obviously something going on here that is odd with Romulan culture. We're introduced to a member of this double secret probationary group.
I can't even remember what they called it now.
Yeah, I can't remember what they called it. Sorry about that, everybody. But ironically, the name is used through the whole episode, so you'll definitely hear what it is. It's odd to me that a few members of the group were so intrinsically introduced, so literally introduced in this episode. I think I would have liked it a little bit better if it was more of a slow roll. But pretty much we're introduced to a few characters, and then, bam, look, these are the bad guys. Yeah.
That's almost exactly right. Which is funny. I laugh because I don't like the slow roll typically, but I'm kind of with you on that. Like, they didn't... It's like lost. Like, the reveal is, like, wasted.
Yeah, and it's funny, too, because the moment the character was introduced, I was like, Ellen, that's the bad guy.
It's
and
true.
They didn't even let me, like, enjoy that for a few episodes, wanting to know if it was the bad guy. Literally, like, 2 minutes later, hey, look, everybody, I'm the bad guy. I'm like, wow, that's slow roll me a little bit here. I mean, give me some dinner. Let me have a little bit of wine and some dessert, and then then let me know what's going to happen the rest of the night. Don't just tell me up front before I even get to order.
I understand. Sorry.
I mean, seriously, I want some steak first.
Steve knows full well, because I complain about it all the time. I do not like the slow roll. Just tell me what I'm looking at. But I do agree with him in this sense. They should have at least dragged it out to the third episode. Like, giving us a little bit of breathing room with it, because otherwise, all the drama that's built from it is sort of wasted at this point. It's sort of gone. And just the idea of being able to have maybe just a little bit of mystery, because they are throwing a lot of information at us. I mean, shoot, in Discovery, we knew who the bad guy was, but we didn't know what happened to him. And they took like 6 episodes before they told us what happened to him. And that was part of like the season finale, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, so they did a really good job on that slow roll in Discovery. And I'm not saying it's the same people, because it's not. But it's all within the same universe. And, you know, to have one show do a really slow reveal where you go, whoa, what? And then have another one go, yep, that's the bad guy. And 2 seconds later, you're like, and there it is. Right, you know, right. It was kind of weird. It was just very strange.
Right, exactly. And is that really, okay, so are we pretty much good with the plot and everything? I think, you know, this episode, there wasn't really anything stand out about the actors or the special effects. Once again, like the first episode, I think both of those things are pretty top-notch. Once again, Picard does a fabulous performance. The other characters are good as well in their roles. I'm not getting any of that first couple episode jitters from the performances. Once again, the special effects, I think, were just as good as the first episode. Nothing really... When they get to a space battle or something like that, as Ellen knows, I will probably be all over talking about that. But other than that, the special effects were still really good. So I didn't think there was anything bad about that. So on those respects, I think the episode really worked.
Agreed. All of that. The other thing I want to kind of touch on briefly is I do like that Picard is not standing solely on fan service and bringing all the old cast members back all at once.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, their names have been thrown around. Data, LaForge, Worf, all of it. All of the Beverly, you know, all of the crew has kind of been, their names have been thrown out there. And because of teaser trailers, I do know that Riker and Troy are going to be in a future episode this season. So that's cool. And Data's already been in it. But I do like that they're not relying on the fan service. And the fan service they are giving us is all subtle enough, like the words no or, you know, whatever. And, I mean, I know they didn't do a direct
the
quote.
Stargazer
Yeah.
and stuff like that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like that the fan service is more subtle, and I think it gives the fan base a little bit more credit and a little bit more time to kind of reinvest themselves back into a world that we really haven't been a part of for like 20 years.
Yeah.
So exactly. To throw us completely head first into the deep end and have the whole Enterprise crew there, I think would have done the whole plot kind of a disservice and actually done the performers a disservice. So I'm really glad that they backed off on that and aren't diving straight into that. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that it seems to me that the fan service and the guest starring roles of the old crew and stuff is all going to make sense to the overall
I agree.
Plot of everything.
All right. Before, actually, I was kind of thinking about a rating of some sort. Is there anything really lastly you want to say before we rate this episode?
Nothing except for... You and I talked about it just briefly, but I had read an article before watching the show about the Admiral Clancy instead of using Admiral Janeway. And actually, after seeing the episode, I wholeheartedly agree with the author that it should not have been Catherine Janeway dressing Picard down like that. It would have been awful. I don't necessarily like Janeway as a character, and Janeway as a character in Jean-Luc Picard's life is kind of periphery. They have a friendship, and there's like a camaraderie there, because she was in, if I remember right, she was in All Good Things as an admiral in the future parts of that.
Maybe not All Good Things, but definitely the movies.
Okay.
Definitely in the movies, there were a scene or two of her speaking with Picard.
But to have her have that kind of easy camaraderie with him, and then tell him that he's effing arrogant in the next time that we see them together on screen, would have really done Janeway a disservice and made her a villain when she's not one. Like her, hate her, whatever, doesn't matter. She's not a villain.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't use her as well in this capacity. Whether they use her down the line, I'm glad they didn't use her for the Admiral in that scene.
That would have been bad. Anyway.
Okay, so I figured we could rate this episode. And actually, let's rate the first episode on a warp scale of 1 to 10. So warp 1 obviously being the slowest and the least or the most amount of time to take to enjoy the episode, to warp 10 where the episode's really cooking and we love it and we're going to get to the conclusion quickly. So on the scale of warp 1 to warp 10, how do you rate the first episode?
First episode I'd rate as an 8.
8?
Warp 8.
I was almost thinking of warp 9.
Wow.
Maximum warp for most Federation ships, because I really enjoyed that episode. I thought on almost all levels it hit the ground running with the CGI, the storytelling, the actors, Picard, Patrick Stewart. So and the music. I thought the music was perfect for the show. So I am going to go out on a extreme limb. I'm going to hit that button and we're going to go warp 9 for the first episode. Talk yourself into it. I talked myself into it. I definitely did. Warp 9. All right, so this episode, however, what did we rate it? Warp 1 to Warp 10, episode number 2, Maps and Legends. How fast are we going?
I say about a Warp 6, because that's not quite into Captain's prerogative yet. Am I right?
Okay, yep.
You don't need a Captain's permission to go faster than Warp 6. It's adequate to get you there.
Okay.
It's not bad.
Okay.
But it's not super exciting. It's like going 45.
So what are some specific reasons why we're not going to hit maximum warp on this one?
For me, this is the part of the story where we're connecting the origin to the actual beginning of the journey.
Okay.
The connecting stories and any sort of arc are not nearly so exciting. It's a whole lot of information being thrown at you. There was not even one action sequence in the entirety of the show, which normally would not even faze me at all.
Especially for Ellen, yeah. Especially for Ellen.
It wouldn't faze me at all, but there was a lot of exposition being thrown. There was a lot of, especially on the Borg cube side of things, there was a lot of technobabble even being thrown about what they're doing. And we're left to obviously to kind of speculate what that technobabble means in reference to what we're looking at on the screen. I don't want to get into too many details about that, because some of that we left vague enough that they can figure out some of that.
Of course.
With Picard himself, though, he's a fantastic character to watch, and he's a lot of fun. I think that I'm going to start going into the upper warp starting next episode and probably through the rest of the season. Just simply because the first episode had to grab you, so there was a lot of action, there was a lot of movement. It doesn't have to be action to be movement.
Understood, yeah.
This one didn't have a lot of movement. The only real movement that we got was in discovering that the Romulans have super secret police. And that
they're on double secret probation.
And that the Borg cube has nothing to do with the Borg or really Romulan refuge.
All right, all right. Man, you are really giving me a good argument for Warp 6. Because I was going to go Warp 7. I was going to go a little bit faster than you, just because me being total Trekkie, I mean, I know Ellen really likes the genre, really likes the setting, the world that Roddenberry built. However, I think that she would agree that I am a little bit more than she is on that bent. So I think I'm still going to go Warp 7. This episode was really well done. I really like the character development and the Easter eggs for Star Trek in general. However, I do think that they dropped the ball as a story plot, as a story aspect, as a writing, as a creator of a mythology, and I'm talking about the mythology of the series as opposed to Star Trek in general. I think they really dropped the ball on the slow burn on the bad guys.
Oh, agreed.
I really think that they could have done that a lot better, and I am agreeing with Ellen about the kind of the technobabble and just throwing a lot of exposition without. It was almost, yes, they were showing you, but it almost bordered for me to the point that they were just telling you and not showing you. Mm-hmm. So, but with everything else in the episode, with the acting by Patrick Stewart and the others, and just kind of the nostalgia feel of Picard going into Starfleet and stuff, I'm gonna go Warp 7 on this one.
Okay. I am not saying that exposition is unnecessary. I think that episodes like this in an overarching plot for, an entire season, these episodes are necessary. They're just not that exciting. It was well done. It was well written, but I can't call something that doesn't have a lot of movement and has a lot of exposition. I can't call it much better than average.
All right. There you go. So we got a Warp 6 from Ellen, so hopefully we can increase our speed next episode for her. We got a Warp 7 for me. That appears to be wrapping up our discussion on episode 2 of Star Trek Picard, Maps and Legends. If you have any ideas about the episode, anything that you want to share with us, go ahead and comment below. If you like hearing about the Star Trek Picard show and want to hear our thoughts on it in the future, go ahead and click subscribe. Other than that, it looks like we are lighting the lanterns outside and it is about time to head to bed.
Bye-bye.
Bye.